Hey ladies and gents, welcome back. This is going to be part 4 of What If Naruto Was the 10 Tails Jinchuriki. So, with that being said, make sure to like and subscribe. There's no like goal or anything like that, but come on, you gotta be nice, and leave any comments below for what future What If ideas you want from me. And that being said, let's just jump right into What If itself. So, just like in the original, Hiruzen did end up dying using the Reaper Death Seal, which means that they do still need to go and find Tsunade, which goes pretty similar to canon, with, they find her eventually. It takes them a while, but they do eventually get there. When they meet, Tsunade would still insult the Hokage, which thereby insults Naruto, who challenges her to a fight, and this time he's actually pretty strong. Like, with him having the Rinnegan and mastering most of his, Rinnegan abilities with Kakashi, he is actually kinda, real OP in this What If, which means this fight is going to go very differently from what it did in the original canon. Now, their fight would begin, and all of Tsunade's punches would be pretty easily dodged by Naruto, but then again, his counters, like I said, at most parts, his physical level isn't all too high, probably just around where Kakashi punching that kind of stuff would be, which is pretty hard. But for somebody like Tsunade, who is a Sannin who heavily influenced her defense and regenerative abilities, this means that Naruto's punches, at least at this point, aren't really doing all too much, which means that he's going to have to rely on his abilities here. Using the, pull and push factors of the Sharingan, or not Sharingan, of the Rinnegan at this point, he is pretty much just kind of trying to keep Tsunade at a distance. He's not really able to do enough damage to actually take her down, but at the same time, she isn't actually able to hit him. Say she actually landed a solid blow on Naruto, that would do massive damage and, it wouldn't kill him because he's the 10 Tails Jinchuriki and he'd just regenerate from it, but it would do a lot more damage to him than a punch from him would do to her. So, yeah, that makes it a little bit harder for Naruto, if it wasn't for one thing. The basic pathway into, getting the Rinnegan requires you to have, Sharingan and, Mangekyo and everything like that, which means Naruto would not only have, some kind of Mangekyo Sharingan ability, but that also means that Naruto is going to be able to use things such as, say, Susanoo, or, things like that, instead of using, his raw power that he would gain from, trying to use some more of the 10 Tails chakra or something like that. With him using, Sharingan abilities, he actually has, control over it, and because he has the Rinnegan, he pretty much doesn't really have any, negative drawbacks that he would normally have. So, yeah, that makes this fight a little bit easier for Naruto, who has been holding back the whole time. He now reverts the, basically, Mangekyo, reverts it into a Mangekyo, and activates the Susanoo, which isn't perfect or anything like that. Naruto hasn't practiced with it too much. It is not in its skeletal form either, though. It is the humanoid Susanoo, so, he has, a weapon and that kind of such, but it isn't a, really overpowered Susanoo to the point where, nothing is going to be able to damage it that Tsunade can dish out, because we've seen her punch through Madara Susanoo. Now, granted, this was with a extra power boost from Inoki, along with the fact that the Raikage was also, helping her in this fight, but the difference between that and a very inexperienced Naruto here, I'm gonna say, makes it able so that if she is able to punch it, she is going to be able to at least, send it flying away. And that, leaves Sasuke open for attacks. Sasuke? What the fuck? Naruto open for attacks, obviously. So, she just absolutely punches the Susanoo, shattering a part of its ribcage, allowing her to, actually get to where Naruto is. And Naruto isn't expecting it at this point, because he thought his Susanoo was just going to be able to tank it, because it hasn't not been able to tank literally anything that Naruto has tested it against, so he kind of just wanted to see. And obviously this means it doesn't work. Naruto gets slammed into the ground with a completely full power punch from Tsunade at this point. he gets sent, down into the ground, making a massive crater. But he's actually able to get up from this, like, mere seconds later because of his just insane healing factor. Like, it did some damage, like she probably just punched a hole through his chest kind of thing, kind of damage, but it doesn't really matter because Naruto is just kind of like that OP in this what if, where like, he might not be at like the physical level to absolutely tank down like other people, at least not at this point, but for most part, Naruto is a lot stronger than like almost anybody else here, and much stronger than he was in canon, because like remember, like I'm not talking about like 5 Kage Summit version of Naruto where he has like Sage Mode and stuff. This is like barely after Chunin exams level Naruto kind of thing, and he's like, duking it out with Tsunade. So this is where their fight would end. They're both, like, technically Leaf Shinobi, and they don't really want to, like, kill each other or anything like that, but Tsunade at this point recognizes Naruto for his strength, and how strong he is just because of his massive arsenal of, like, random shit that he can use, and how powerful most of it actually is. So the fight would end, and Tsunade would end up agreeing to, become the Hokage, at least like a temporary one, before Naruto would take her or somebody else's place if she ended up having to, like, leave the Hokage position pretty shortly. So they return back to the village, and it is still decided to have Naruto train up in order to, combat some of the people from the Akatsuki. Now, this is, like, remember, Naruto is around Sannin level at this point with, like, what his arsenal of abilities and stuff is, but now Naruto is going to have around 2.5 years of training with Jiraiya. Now, this 2.5 years, since Naruto has mastered most of, like, the abilities that he has, such as, like, Rinnegan abilities and different things like that, he is not really that strong when it comes to the ability to have, like, control over pretty much any of the tailed beasts whatsoever. So most of this time, since Jiraiya would have the seals, would be spent trying to befriend and, like, get control over most of the tailed beasts. And for, like, somewhat, this is actually quite successful. Obviously, things like the 9 tails and 10 tails aren't going to be like, oh yeah, sure, I'm gonna agree with you. But for the most part, like, 1 through 8 tails, Naruto has the seals completely removed on all of them, and is freely able to get chakra from them, and they actually like Naruto quite a bit because of who he is. And this means that over time, the, 9 tails will begin warming up to Naruto, because he sees how much how much he actually cares for the other tailed beasts during their training. Naruto would, do stuff like asks for Kurama's name and things like that, and eventually it would just reach the point where Kurama actually ends up deciding to, form a little bit of an alliance with Naruto, just so he, can be kind of part of this too, because he already can see, like, just with how strong Naruto has gotten over the last, like, year and a half at this point is about how long it has been since Kurama, like, started to warm up to Naruto, I guess you could say. And he just decides that, hey, whatever, it doesn't really matter that much. He already has 1 to 8 tails, like, completely, like, befriended, meaning he might as well join in too. And this just leaves the 10 tails as the last thing for Naruto to try to basically conquer here. Now, at this point, it's been about 2 years into the training. They only have a few months before they're going to return back to the village, and Jiraiya decides that it's time to try and release at least a little bit of the 10 tails chakra from its seal in order to see exactly what it is they would be dealing with here. Now, Naruto has a lot more training than he does in the original, along with the fact that he has a great arsenal when it comes to genjutsu and things such as that, due to the fact that he has the Rinnegan, and that means that Jiraiya actually feels pretty confident that Naruto is at least going to control a little bit of its chakra, which he does actually pretty easily. Loosening the seal just a little bit does pretty much nothing to Naruto. It makes him a lot physically stronger, and part of Naruto's aura is... or not aura, sorry, but like his skin seems to be like almost cracking a little bit, like Naruto might be going like somewhat unstable or something of that sort. But for the most part, Naruto is actually like, able to freely move, freely do pretty much everything. but the second the seal is loosened just a little bit more, Naruto starts to lose his sanity. He starts to go completely crazy in his mind. He's seeing images of people that he cares about dying, and in his mind, he's just getting ripped apart, just going over memories from the past over and over again. In order for pretty much, this is trying to break Naruto. But Naruto is actually able to think clearly through this. He is able to realize why certain things happened and where it actually led him to be now. And with him thinking these things, Naruto's person slowly begins to get pieced back together little by little, and Naruto is taming the Ten Tails chakra as time goes on in this weird battle that Naruto is basically having in his mind at this point. Now, Naruto eventually pretty much wakes up from his state of being unconscious, and for the most part, everything is fine around him. Most of this battle took place in Naruto's mind, because with this being the Ten Tails, some action would be taken basically to try and restrain Naruto and try to give him time to be able to control this. And if nothing else worked, then Yamato would be summoned, and they would just use him in order to basically reduce the chakra that it has and try to bring Naruto back to his normal state. Because they did it a lot smarter here, knowing that it was the accumulation of literally all of the tailed beasts, and it at this point was pretty much just as strong as all of the others put together, kind of a thing. So yeah, they decided to take a little bit more precaution with this. And this actually works out massively in their favor, because if this hadn't been in place, Jiraiya would have died. Just died completely from Naruto. And this means that he doesn't die, at least not at this exact time. Rip Jiraiya 20. I don't even... When was Jiraiya when was the pain arc an actual thing? When did it come out? What year was that? I don't remember. It doesn't matter though. So... with this actually happening, Naruto is able to gain control over the Ten Tails' chakra, and his skin basically doesn't have those weird crinkles in it anymore, Naruto's body is getting ripped apart or anything like that. And Naruto gains complete control over the Ten Tails at this moment. Now, this means that Naruto has complete control over it. It's not some thing where Naruto releases a little bit more chakra because the seal starts to weaken a bit more and Naruto's gonna lose control again. No, with Naruto realizing who he was and him having full identity, I guess you could say, of himself, he's not even going to lose control anymore like that. So, at least with the Ten Tails still sealed. As long as the seal doesn't break, they're gonna be fine. But if it gets to the point where, the seal is about to break because of how much Naruto's, straining himself to use the Ten Tails' chakra, then yeah, it's gonna break out. And if Naruto hasn't, I guess you could say, befriended the Ten Tails, if that's even, possible, then yeah, that's gonna be quite bad for Naruto. If he runs out of chakra, too, would be quite an issue. So, some more, basically time would pass by, and Naruto and Jiraiya would return to the village. Now, like I said, almost all of Naruto's time was spent, dedicated to trying to befriend the tailed beast. Was actually very, very successful, comparatively to what happened in the original, where Naruto's, barely able to control up to, 3 tails, kind of a thing, before he loses control. So, yeah. Naruto did a lot better here in terms of being able to befriend them, just because of what actually happened, with all the other tailed beasts being a lot easier to basically make an ally. That makes it easier for Kurama to become an ally, and because of the fact that Naruto has stuff like the Rinnegan and things like a strong sense of identity, he was actually able to tame the Ten Tails as well. So, this means that we're truly into Shippuden now. The time skip, training break, whatever you want to call it, is now over, and we continue into Shippuden. But that's going to be for part 5, because that's where I'm leaving this part up. So, I'll see you guys then. Thanks for watching this far if you did, and I'll see you in a day or two for the next part.